Hello everyone and welcome back to Tera raid counters. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of an intro. They take quite a while to actually make, surprise what you see. But Hisuian Samurrott counter Tera raid guides, or as I like to call it, Samurrott or Hammerrott. This is broadly what I'm going to be expecting from this thing. Of course, it's going to have sharpness as they always have their hidden abilities, but with Ceaseless Edge, either Razor Shell or Aqua Cutter. For electric types, it's obviously going to have something like Drill Run or Bulldoze. And for grass types, there's a couple of options. It could be either X-Scissor or a move like Aerial Ace. The reason I don't think it's going to have a move like Mega Horn is that with Sharpness, X-Scissor is the exact same power as Mega Horn. And there's a huge number of things that can absolutely clown on this thing. For the setup moves, it's probably going to have something like Swords Dance or Rain Dance to boost itself up. And as you can see, it's probably got some crit hack shenanigans going on. Because unlike in previous generations, this thing doesn't actually get focus energy anymore. So we're actually going to be breaking up the guide counters into something a little bit different than how we've done it before. So we're going to have the Tera raid counter in the corner, and we're going to have the EVs and item on the top of the screen. But if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more, and we have a shiny giveaway in a couple of weeks. I know you'll enjoy that. This is also being recorded in the same setting. There's actually also being recorded in the same sitting as Kieran's Dark Secret for the DLC, and the possible Dipplin evolution and the things for or against it, and its potential other explanations. And also, don't forget to check out our massive Battle Frontier retrospective and theories about it returning in the Indigo disc right here. Right here. Took a long time to make that, took about a month to finish. Thank you guys, and now, on to the stuff. So, Manaphy, first one. This might seem like a bit of an unorthodox choice, but Hisuian Samurrott has nothing to hit other water types, pretty much. It has no electric moves, it gets Grass Knot, but it has a lower special attack than its normal unova counterpart. And Manaphy is capable of learning Energy Ball, in conjunction with Tail Glow. This allows for some absurd amounts of setup potential. It can body almost everything that the Hisuian Samurrott's got to throw at it. It can hit back with insane damage. Its one downside is it doesn't have natural grass stab going into it, but it can still chunk hits far better than almost anything else here. Miraidon is up next for some of the better options. It, of course, is Miraidon. Electric. It has natural Hadron Engine, which sets electric terrain and gives it a special attack boost whenever it is on electric terrain, further juicing its absurd electric type attack power. Really, your big moves for this thing are Parabolic Charge, and Electro Drift. You can possibly tack on either Calm Mind or Thunderbolt if you want extra damage, but the big one you really need is that Electro Drift and Parabolic Charge. Of course, Parabolic Charge for healing, and Electro Drift for pretty absurd damage once you terastallize and go for the big stab. Remember, electric terrain boosts electric moves by 30%. Hadron Engine boosts it by another 30%. And Electro Drift has a 33% power increase when hitting for super effective damage. It's a lot of threes. Then there is Thunderous. It does not have quite the same absurd amount of setup as Manaphy, but what it does have is a bit of a better typing. Unlike Miraidon and almost every single other electric type, it is not weak to ground, as it is a flying type. So it can set up pretty much like this Abandon. Now, it is going to be taking significant damage from water-type moves, especially if this thing does have rain set up, but that actually works in your favor, as it does get Charge, Thunder, and Wild Bolt Storm always hits when in a rainstorm, with a pretty substantial chance to cause paralysis that's nothing to scoff at. It also does get Nasty Plot, allowing for some pretty further excessive damage. And again, you can also still take out Thunder. Belly Bolt is one of the other absolutely fantastic options. It does not pack the same sheer outright power as the other electric types, but it does pack is Electromorphosis, which, anytime it's hit by a move, immediately gives it Charge, which, this in conjunction with Electric Terrain and Parabolic Charge, gives it pretty good long-term healing and sustain in battle. It also gets Acid Spray, allowing it to equip the special defense of the Hisuian Samurrott, allowing for even more damage with its Parabolic Charge. Is also fantastic. It's got many aspects of Thunderous, with some other aspects that make it much more formidable than some other Pokemon may appear to be. It gets Nasty Plot, so it can, of course, set up and do some big damage. And there's actually a couple of forms that are quite useful here. Depending on what the moves Hisuian Samurrott has, It can go for either Rotom Wash form, it can go for Rotom Frost, or Rotom Fan. Possibly Rotom Mow, but you're not going to be using grass moves with Rotom. You're going to be sticking exclusively with electric type moves. The main reason is Rotom Mow, Leaf Storm cripples your own special attack. Not a great thing to be doing. Vikavolt is another aggressive electric type. Main reason for this is, even though it doesn't get setup options, what it does have is naturally very good stats. It is not weak to ground, as it has Levitate normally, and even when the abilities get nullified, which, if that happens, Rotom is going to be in some pretty serious danger from something like Drill Run. One of the reasons why you would possibly want to go for Fan Rotom is the natural bug typing of the Vikavolt prevents it from being weak to ground moves. Of course, it is going to be taking a lot of damage from water-type moves. But it also possesses the highest non-legendary, non-set-up special attack of any electric types. It is the single strongest attacker from the get-go, but when you factor in things like Electromorphoses or other abilities, it is not first best. Into the grass types, we have RKS. And you're going to want, of course, Tera type's changing here. You're going to want the Meadow Plate on this one. It does actually get access to Giga Drain, and it of course gets access to Acid Spray and Judgment, allowing for a very, very strong grass type special attack, and of course special defense crippling, with pretty much the best bulk around. It also gets access to Recover. It doesn't possess the same sheer setup potential as other Pokemon, but it brings a combination of bulk and damage that few other Pokemon in this entire thing can match. Speaking of things few Pokemon can match, Sinistcha is a one-of-a-kind Pokemon that honestly is one of the single best options here. It is Ghost naturally, so it is not weak to things such as X-Scissor, only fearing Aerial Ace. Until you remember it has Ceaseless Edge, which is a 65 base power stab dark move, which does threaten it a little bit. So your mileage may vary on this, but it does bring one very, very unique trait. And that is Matcha Gotcha. Use it fires a blast of tea that it mixed. The user's HP is restored by up to half the damage taken by the target. It may also leave the target with a burn. It is not the most accurate move in existence, but it's a 90% accurate move, 80 base power, heals you. It's basically Scald and Giga Drain in one move. On top of it, it does actually get Giga Drain naturally, and also Nasty Plot. So it's basically Manaphy if Manaphy were naturally weak to one of its moves. There's a little bit of a risk associated with it, of course, because it does have that weakness to Ceaseless Edge, but the payoff can be pretty extraordinary, with Burn cutting that thing's attack in half, allowing everything to do more damage. Well, allowing everything to take less damage so they can survive more and not need to heal cheer. Similarly to that, we have actually two forms of Shaman are both equally viable here. They're viable for different reasons. The Grass Standard form is significantly bulkier than Sky form, as it does have 100 in all of its stats. It's also less aggressive, so it can't do out the same sheer amount of damage. But what it does have is far better survivability. For its moves in both forms are pretty much going to be identical. Of course, things like Giga Drain and signature move Seed Flare. This is one of the places where Sky form comes in handy significantly more, as its Serene Grace access makes Seed Flare an 80% chance to harshly drop that thing's special defense. Think Acid Spray, but super effective, and 120 base power. Yeah, that move is scary. The pros and cons with it is, while Shaman is weak to X-Scissor, Skyform is significantly more frail, and it is still weak to Aerial Ace. So, if X-Scissor's in play but not Aerial Ace, Skyform Shaman is the far better option to go for. But if Aerial Ace is in play, it's better to go with the standard Grass Shaman. In a similar vein, we have, well, Diet Shaman, aka Appleton. With Apple Acid, it is always capable of dropping special defense by a single stage. Same combination of things such as Giga Drain allowing it to self-sustain, and some strong grass-type stab options when it terastallizes to deal out some pretty substantial damage. Though, it's very slow, but it's physically very bulky, so it can chunk hits quite well. And now again to the oldie but a goodie, we're throwing them hands, Iron Hands. There really isn't much that needs to be said about Iron Hands. Pretty standard, Thunder Punch, Charge, Belly Drum, the standards, the works. We know why it does what it does. The only issue to really watch out for is, of course, the Belly Drum can be nullified by any frequent stat purges, so Don't go right off the bat with the setup of Belly Drum, as if it purges turn 2, you're basically gone anyway. And Charge is very important as it allows you to do further electric type damage, which cannot be wiped away by the stat purge, as a very critical thing that electric types have over the grass types. The grass types have a little bit of a better typing, unless, of course, X's is in play, whereas the electric types have significantly more offensive power, but they lack resistance and bulk. Annihilate is a somewhat risky, but also quite solid pick. It does all the things we know and love: Rage Fist, bulk up. Hisuian Samurrott, if it does have Bulldoze, this juices that thing into oblivion. And of course, Rage Fist, we know it does well. Drain Punch, it's fantastic. You're going to want on this one, Terrestrialized type is going to be shown on screen, but it is either going to be an absolute menace or it really doesn't do that much damage. It's going to depend very much on what the moves are. It does actually not fear anything other than Aerial Ace, which, depending on what it has, that could be a thing. That does come very much in handy, but if it does have Aerial Ace, well, Ghost Monkey may not be the best call. Ogerpon Wellspring Mask. Really, you can actually use Ogerpon Fire or Ogerpon Water, even potentially Ogerpon Standard Grass, as all of them are fantastic. You're not really going to be using Ivy Cudgel in this matchup unless you're using base. Unless you're using base Ogerpon. Instead, what you're going to want to be opting for this is actually, you're going to be wanting for Horn Leech instead of Ivy Cudgel if you're going with anything other than Ogerpon Standard Grass, which, even then, you're still probably going to want Horn Leech anyway, because it's a fantastic move, and Ivy Cudgel does have very, very low power points. With Ogerpon Water, you will, of course, be immune to any of its water-type moves that are just throwing, and they will heal you, and when you Terrestrialize Water, you can't really take much damage from it because it doesn't have anything for water types. With Ogerpon Fire, while you're not weak to something like, say, X-Scissor, you are taking more damage from water-type moves, which is a bit of a downside, and if you Terrestrialize while you're Fire, you're weak to water, and that's going to wipe you out. So probably better to go with regular Tera Grass or Tera Water. The oldie but a goodie, the one that we originally used to clown on Samurrott, and now it's time to clown on Samurrott, is Paldea Tauros Water Breed. The main reason for this one comes down to it has access to Anger Point. If this thing has crit shenanigans, that maxes out your attack power, and you can go for your strong fighting type options, Terrestrialize, and then just go and blow through it with ease. Now, the one problem is it doesn't actually have many super effective moves unless you Terrestrialize it to either Grass or Electric, which have their own associated problems, but overall, it's good, but it's not great. It's good as a backup. And rounding out our attackers, we've got the unique Alola Ninetales. Snow Warning, fantastic ability, gives it snow setup, which reduces all physical damage it takes, which cannot be wiped away by the stat purge, another very important thing. Considering that Hisuian Samurrott's move pool is almost exclusively physical, the only way you can be weak to a move that Hisuian Samurrott has is if they give it Smart Strike, which, considering all these raid bosses as of late have only had 4 attacking moves, if they give this thing Smart Strike just to deal with Alola Ninetales, that is going to be taking away one covered move from either grass or electric, meaning it's going to be a joke either way. It also gets access to Nasty Plot and one of my favorite moves of all time, Freeze Dry. This is a water type super effective move, in that it will hit water types for super effective damage. Terrestrialize this, you're pretty much gold. And if the thing for some reason does have special attacking moves, well, you have massive special attacks anyway. It also gets Aurora Veil, so it can set up and support all allies. There's really nothing bad about Alola Ninetales. Now we are getting into your pure support options. These are going to be your damage supports, as in things that, these are the Pokemon that crush the defensive stats of the Samurrott, but don't really do that much damage on their own, either from lack of setup potential or not the best offensive stat lines to begin with. These are, again, your pure support options. First up is Flapple. Grav Apple always decreases physical defense. That's really all you got. It is going to be weak to, of course, any bug or flying type moves that are thrown its way, but it resists the ground moves, it resists the water moves very heavily because it's part dragon, and it does take neutral damage from Ceaseless Edge. That's really the only thing you gotta worry about if it doesn't have either of the bug or flying moves. The same story holds for Sarina. This is not a damage support, this is a defense support. Because Trop Kick always decreases physical attack by 1 stage. This may be not the most helpful, as if this thing does have crit shenanigans moves, that is going to bypass any attack drops, but it's still nice to have anyways, as there is still a relatively low chance of the thing landing critical hits. Even boosted critical hit chance moves have only a 12.25% chance of hitting. It's a 1 in 8 shot. And that's only if it's using crit boosting moves. As well, Serena is naturally quite bulky, so it can take hits quite well, but again, you have to watch out for those bugger flying moves. Electros is a fantastic support. Again, it combines aspects of Rotom, Thundurus, and the various Acid Spray users all into one. In fact, all of these going forward, until we say otherwise, are all the Acid Spray users. It doesn't really fear anything other than Water-type moves, and it can't really do anything to mitigate this, but it does get Acid Spray, it does get those fantastic electric moves, lets it do some good damage, even if it's not the most offensive because it doesn't have any setup options itself. It's quite useful to have, as Electros is actually relatively bulky, considering some of the other options. Goodra somewhat follows suit. It's not the physically bulkiest thing in the world. You want regular Colosian Goodra over Hisuian, as Hisuian Goodra is weak to ground, despite an overall better defensive typing. You really don't want to be dealing with that not good weakness to ground here, or potential weakness to fighting if it has Sacred Sword. And Hisuian Goodra does fantastic. It also gets Thunder, so that way, if it does set up Rain, or even if you're just using Thunderbolt, you can still do out some not fantastic damage, but decent enough damage while supporting with special defense drops. Toxapex! Toxapex is also fantastic. It is absurdly bulky, and this thing is not meant to do any damage whatsoever. It gets access to the amazing Chilling Water, allowing me to continuously debuff the physical attack of Samurrott, and has Acid Spray to continuously cripple its special defense. Really, it's got a lot of good things going for it, but it is also very slow, so it's going to be going after your attacker's move, which isn't the best for speed, and it is, of course, weak to ground, making it kind of easy to get taken down, and it will require a lot of heal support from things such as holding the Black Sludge, or dedicated heal cheers to offset the fact that it can't Shell Bell heal. Vaporeon is a Fake Tears support. This is where we start getting into the Fake Tears support users, and Fake Tears, fantastic thing on Vaporeon. Vaporeon's not going to do much damage on its own. You can go for maybe some Calm Mind Stored Power shenanigans with it, but it's all going to be just Fake Tears spam or Helping Hand, because it can't really hurt Samurrott on its own. Azumarill, again, same vein, but it possesses far better ability to just take hits. It resists almost anything that Hisuian Samurrott can throw at it. It resists water, it resists dark, it resists bug. The only thing it's got to worry about is Drill Run, and even then, that's not that big of a worry. You can, of course, go for a semi-damage, semi-support one with things like Belly Drum and Fake Tears to support special attacking allies, but Azumarill on its own isn't going to be doing the most amount of damage, because it has no means of destroying the physical defense stat. Clefable, and this spot could also be occupied by the similar Quagsire, as Quagsire does not get Fake Tears, but it gets Acid Spray. They're both unaware users. If Hisuian Samurrott goes for something like, I don't know, Swords Dance, that could be scary and potentially avoidable with things like Unaware. Though, this also does mean it will not be affected by any special defense debuffs that are applied to it when doing damage, or any attack drops will not affect it if it's unaware. So, your mileage may vary on that, and I generally will say it is better to go with an Acid Spray Water Absorb Quagsire than it is to go with an Unaware one, as it kind of bodies water moves. The biggest worry in this entire thing is the water-type moves, and Quagsire literally eats those for breakfast. Grimmsnarl, what is there to say about Grimmsnarl? Fake Tears, Chilling Water, Reflect. It does all the things we need to do, and it's fantastic at doing it. And now our Screech users. Umbreon, and of course it also does get Fake Tears, Helping Hand, really all the good stuff you need. And so does Kommo-o. One good thing about Kommo-o over Umbreon is Umbreon is likely to be weak to a move like X's, or if it has Sacred Sword, Sacred Sword. Kommo-o, with its Dragon fighting typing, is resistant to water, it's resistant to dark, it's resistant to bug, And the only thing it's got to worry about is Aerial Ace, which during Kamo is actually a fairly bulky Pokemon to begin with. Isn't that bad. It also, of course, gets a very wide coverage options because it's a dragon type, and they generally have some pretty bonkers coverage. Not bad, but also not great. And there you have it. Now, there's a lot of options to use on to beat this thing, and I really hope this is probably the last level 7 Tera raid. And the main reason I think it's probably going to be one of the last ones is the Indigo Disc does have all the starters returning. They're going to be standard spawns in the overworld that you can just go and find anywhere. Considering the level 7 Tera raids were generally for, well, starters, with the Eevee, Pikachu, and Mewtwo ones being sort of separate special things, for all very iconic Pokemon in and of themselves, it doesn't seem likely we're going to get Mightiest Mark level 7 raids for all of the future, well, successive starters. So, I hope I'm wrong on that, and I hope we actually do have a lot more of these level 7 Tera raid bosses. But, based on... At this point, we have 2.5 weeks, maybe even less depending on when this gets released, until the Indigo Disc comes out. And if they went through all of the other starters, giving them 2 weeks apiece, we'd be here for probably another year. You lump that in with if they do every single legendary in Tera raids as 1 raid apiece, that itself would be 2 years. Would be, well, nearly a year, well over a year and a half, not exactly 2 years. But taken together, that's going to be 2.5 years and then some. I don't quite think we're going to be getting those. And we actually have another video in the works that is actually being recorded on a different day, all about Ms. Briar and how she is the key to the future legendary Terramax adventures and the 19th Tera type. I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more, and I will see you next time.